I never planned for my life to change so drastically. My name was Adam Clark, 27 years old, single, working in a warehouse on the outskirts of Chicago. I wasn't ambitious. I wasn't unhappy either. My life was a simple routine. I'd wake up at 6 o'clock, throw on a hoodie, bike to work, sort packages for 8 hours, return to my one-bedroom apartment, and eat frozen meals while watching TV. My apartment wasn't messy, but it wasn't clean either. Just livable. I never imagined I would be anything other than that guy. Quiet, invisible, going nowhere fast. Until I lost my job. It happened on a cold Tuesday morning. A robot malfunctioned on the line. I was blamed. Fired with a shrug and a thin severance check. That was it. No warnings, no second chances. For a week, I didn't leave my apartment. I lived off microwave noodles and sat in the same pajamas for days. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't ask my family for help. They'd long ago written me off as the lazy one. I had no savings. Rent was due in 3 weeks. Out of desperation, I texted the only person who might help, Natalie Morgan. We had dated years ago briefly. She was a friend of a friend. We didn't really fit back then. She was driven, stylish, a lifestyle blogger who loved clean white apartments and colorful breakfasts. I was still the same hoodie-wearing guy back then, but we'd stayed friendly. She always had a soft spot for me, for reasons I never understood. I told her I was out of work and struggling. She replied within a minute. Come stay with me for a while. I've got space. Let's figure things out. I hesitated, but I had no choice. When I arrived at her place, a bright, 2-story home in the suburbs, I felt like a stain in her perfect white world. Everything smelled like citrus. The kitchen looked untouched. Her bathroom had pink towels and flowery soap. She had candles everywhere. She hugged me tightly when I walked in. You'll be fine here, she said. But I have some ground rules. No lying around in boxers all day. If you stay here, you'll help me keep the place together. Deal? I nodded awkwardly. Deal. That first week, I mostly vacuumed and wiped down surfaces while she worked on her laptop. I started waking up earlier than usual to make breakfast. I didn't know why. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe I didn't want to look useless. But the more I cleaned and organized, the more Natalie seemed proud. She'd smile and say, "You're really good at this." Her compliments felt new to me. No one had complimented me in months. One day, she left a pile of laundry on the couch and said, "Would you mind folding these?" I didn't. As I folded her blouses, skirts, and lacy nightwear, something shifted. I found myself curious. The fabrics were soft, light, nothing like my scratchy t-shirts. When she wasn't around, I picked up a pink sweater and held it to my chest. It was warm, smelled like lavender. I put it on just for a second. I heard the door open and ripped it off in panic. She didn't see, but something had awakened in me. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stared at her wardrobe through the slightly open door. I don't want to be Natalie. I don't want to be a woman. That's what I told myself. But something about the way she lived, the comfort, the grace, the beauty in her everyday rituals, it pulled me in. Days passed. She asked me to take on more, doing the dishes, organizing her pantry, rearranging the bookshelves. I started doing things without being asked. I learned how she liked her clothes folded, her meals arranged. I took pride in small things, fluffing the couch pillows, scenting the rooms with fresh flowers. I liked the way it made her smile. Then came the day that changed everything. I was dusting the bookshelf in her bedroom when I noticed a pale blue box under her bed. It was full of neatly folded dresses, a pair of beige heels, some makeup, and a note that read, "For the retreat." I didn't know what that meant, but I stared at the items like they were treasure. The front door clicked. I panicked, shoved the box back, and ran to the kitchen, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. That night, after she went to bed, I crept back in. I took out one of the dresses, a soft floral one with tiny bows on the sleeves. My hands shook as I pulled off my clothes and slipped into it. It hugged me in places I never knew could feel so gentle. I stood in front of her full-length mirror and saw a stranger, and yet, someone who made sense. I stayed like that for nearly an hour until guilt forced me out of it. I thought I'd gotten away with it, but Natalie knew. 2 days later, she asked me gently, "Do you want to talk about the dress?" I froze. My mouth went dry. "I didn't mean to," I stammered. She reached out and touched my hand. "It's okay. You looked beautiful." I wanted to cry. I didn't know what was happening inside me. I told her I was confused, that I didn't know if it was some kind of fetish or curiosity or something else. She nodded. "You've been taking care of this home like a perfect little housewife," she said with a smirk. "It suits you." We laughed, but something in her tone felt honest. That night, she handed me a soft bundle wrapped in tissue paper. "This is for you if you want it." Inside was a soft pink apron, a pair of pastel leggings, and a blush-colored top with frills on the sleeves. I wore them at first just to help clean. Then I started wearing them all the time. I stopped feeling like Adam in those moments. I didn't pick a new name. Not yet. But I felt calm, right? Natalie began referring to me playfully as the lady of the house. We never spoke seriously about it, but slowly my wardrobe changed. The clothes she bought me were no longer borrowed. They were mine. She taught me how to braid my hair, how to apply light makeup, how to walk more gracefully. I started wearing perfume. I learned to cook meals that didn't come from a microwave. I decorated the guest room where I now slept, adding little lights and cushions, and even a vanity table. I never said out loud that I was changing, but she saw it, and she supported it. One evening, she took me to a small boutique on the other side of town. "Just to look around," she said, but the way the clerk looked at me, smiled at me as she handed me a peach sundress and called me ma'am, it made something inside me flutter. When we got home, Natalie said, "I've had roommates before, but this is the first time it's felt like I'm living with a partner. A real one." I blushed. She looked into my eyes. "Have you thought about what you want long term?" I didn't know how to answer, but I was starting to understand that I didn't want to go back. Not to the warehouse, not to the hoodies, not to being invisible. I was becoming someone new, someone whole, someone real. It had been 3 months since I moved in with Natalie. By now, the person I used to be, Adam, felt like a distant memory. I didn't think of myself with that name anymore. Not when I tied my hair into a neat ponytail in front of the mirror. Not when I picked out a soft cardigan and floral skirt in the morning, and certainly not when I carefully placed tiny earrings on each lobe and smoothed lip gloss onto my lips. Natalie had begun calling me Ava. It started as a joke one day when I served her breakfast wearing a pink apron with lace trim. "You're such an Ava today," she said, laughing warmly. I had tilted my head, pretending to act annoyed, but deep down I loved it. It sounded so gentle, feminine, graceful, like everything I was slowly becoming. After that, she kept using the name, and eventually I responded to it naturally. I didn't resist. I embraced it. I was Ava now. The house had fully become ours. While Natalie handled her blogging and business calls from the sunlit living room, I took care of everything else. I cooked meals from scratch, kept the rooms spotless, organized our schedules, and even started planning home decor updates. I'd become obsessed with table centerpieces and learning how to fold napkins into the shape of roses. But with every passing day, the walls of the house began to feel like the only place where Ava could exist. Outside, I still had to walk carefully. I dressed modestly, kept my eyes down, avoided conversations. We lived in a neighborhood where people noticed things, whispered. One Saturday, we went grocery shopping together. I wore a long skirt, a white top, and a sun hat. As we walked through the aisles, Natalie linked her arm with mine and smiled like we were just two close friends on a weekend errand. But then, a cashier stared too long. A kid nearby whispered something to his mom. I could feel their eyes scanning me, judging me for something they weren't sure they were looking at. I wanted to disappear. At home, I sat silently at the edge of the bed, my hands folded on my lap. Natalie came in, knelt beside me, and held my hands. "You don't need to prove anything to them," she whispered. "You're Ava, and I'm proud of you." I nodded, but deep down doubt lingered. Was this really who I was, or was I just pretending? The next day, Natalie surprised me. I've signed you up for something, she said, trying to act casual. It's a homemaker's workshop. You'll meet other women, moms, wives, homemakers like yourself. It's nothing serious. Just a chance to eat, talk, do some crafts. I stared at her in shock. You signed me up as Ava? She nodded slowly.
Yes.
You don't have to go if you're not ready. But something inside me said I was. So I went. I wore my favorite mint green dress, tied a white ribbon in my hair, and walked into that little community center with trembling hands. It felt like walking into a dream or a test. I kept expecting someone to call me out, to say I didn't belong. But no one did. In fact, the women smiled. They asked my name. They welcomed me like I had always been one of them. We made lavender candles. We baked scones. We shared stories about daily routines. One woman asked how long I'd been married. I laughed nervously and said, "Oh, it's just me and my partner." I almost said roommate, but I didn't want to. Natalie was more than a roommate now. So much more. When I returned home, Natalie greeted me with a hug. Well, I couldn't stop smiling. I didn't feel like I was pretending. Because you weren't, she said. We stood in silence for a moment before she said, Ava, can I ask you something real? I turned toward her, my heart racing. Have you ever thought about what it would mean to be her completely? To not just dress the part, but live it? I didn't answer immediately because I had thought about it. A lot. Late at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I could take that final step. Not just crossdressing, not just pretending, but transitioning. Living life as Ava. Not for a day or a month, but always.
I'm scared, he whispered.
She stepped closer, placed her hand on my cheek. So was I when I started living my truth. I didn't know if I wanted to be a boss, or a wife, or a partner. But I figured it out. You don't have to know everything today. But if you feel it in here, she touched my chest, then maybe it's time to start dreaming bigger. That night we talked for hours about hormones, about therapy, about the road ahead. It was real, terrifying, but also thrilling. Natalie said she would support me no matter what I chose, but she believed in me. She saw Ava even when I doubted her. Over the next few weeks, I slowly started coming out to people in Natalie's circle, her close friends, her sister, even her mom. Some were surprised. A few were confused, but all were kind. I learned to walk more confidently. I began to embrace my voice, my laugh, my softness. I stopped asking permission to be Ava. I just was Ava. Then one afternoon a letter arrived. It was from my old landlord. Apparently, someone from my past, an old coworker, had been asking around for me. They'd found my old apartment, saw it was empty, and somehow got my forwarding address. I was stunned. Natalie read the letter and looked at me with concern. Do you want to respond? The truth was, I had been avoiding my past.
Avoiding adam.
But now he was trying to find me. The next morning, I stared at my reflection in the mirror, wearing a soft cream blouse and floral skirt. I whispered to myself, what would you do if he stood in front of you right now? What would you say? The answer came quickly. I'm not him anymore. The final chapter of my past was calling me, and I knew I would have to face it one last time. The knock on the door was gentle, almost hesitant. I stood frozen in the hallway, my hands slightly trembling. Natalie peeked from the kitchen. Do you want me to open it? I shook my head.
No.
I need to do this myself. I had been baking, something to distract myself, and the scent of cinnamon filled the air. I straightened the clip in my hair and opened the door. He stood there. My past. His name was Josh, one of the few people who knew Adam closely. He looked at me, eyebrows raised, eyes searching. For a moment, we just stared at each other. He blinked. I was looking for Adam. I smiled, though my hands were still clenched behind the door. He's not here anymore. Josh tilted his head, clearly confused. I got your address from your old landlord. I thought you disappeared. I did, I said gently. I disappeared, and then I found her. His eyes widened slightly. Wait, you're... I nodded. I'm Ava now. He stared for a long second before breathing out a shaky laugh.
Wow.
You look different. I am different, I said politely. I wasn't expecting this. I didn't expect to become this either, I said. But I'm finally happy. There was a pause. He looked down, then back up. You seem peaceful. I am. For the first time in my life, I feel like I'm home. He nodded. So, this is real? Not just something you're trying?
This is me.
It's always been me. I just didn't know it. Josh stepped back slightly. I guess I wanted to reconnect. Maybe grab a drink like old times. I don't drink, I said softly. And I don't look back. He gave a short laugh. Fair enough. You're brave, Ava. I mean that. I don't think I'd ever have the guts to start over like this. It's not guts, I said. It's survival. He nodded again, slower this time. Take care, Ava. You too, Josh. And just like that, the last ghost of my past turned and walked away. I closed the door quietly. Natalie was standing there, smiling. You okay? She asked. I nodded. Better than okay. I feel like a chapter just closed. That evening, Natalie lit candles in the living room, and I brought out the pie I had baked. We sat on the couch, soft music playing. She reached over and took my hand. I'm proud of you, she whispered. I'm proud of me, too, I replied. We sat in silence for a while, and then Natalie asked, So what now? What does Ava want next? I looked at her, my heart full. I want a life, I said.
A real one.
Maybe something small, quiet. A routine. The smell of fresh bread, laundry folded just right, a garden I can call my own. A home. A partner. Natalie smiled. You already have those things. I leaned against her shoulder. Then maybe I want to share it out loud with the world. The next week, I signed up for a speaking event at the same community center where I had first introduced myself as Ava. The theme was New Beginnings. I wore a powder blue dress, tied my hair back, and walked up to the microphone with more confidence than I thought I had. My name is Ava, I began, and I used to live someone else's life. I spoke about change, about fear, about becoming a housewife and what it taught me, about learning how to care, how to find joy in small details, how to feel loved in quiet ways. I spoke about femininity not just as a look, but as a feeling, a truth, a strength. I talked about Natalie and how one kind person changed everything for me. After the event, a young woman approached me. Her eyes were filled with tears. She hugged me without saying a word, and I knew I had given someone else the courage to start their own story. Months passed, then seasons. Ava's world became bigger, fuller, richer. I started a small blog about homemaking and transformation called Becoming Her, where I shared tips, feelings, struggles, and victories. It gained a quiet popularity. Women wrote to me from different towns and countries. Some were wives, some were crossdressers, some were just lost souls. They all called me Ava. Natalie and I eventually held a small ceremony in our backyard. Not a wedding, not officially. Just an evening under fairy lights. 2 vows whispered under the stars. 2 hearts promising to stay beside each other, no matter how far we'd traveled to get here. And one morning, as I stood in the kitchen preparing toast and tea, Natalie walked in, kissed my cheek, and said, "You're everything I never knew I needed." I looked at her and replied, "So are you." In that moment, I realized I had become exactly what I was meant to be. A woman, a housewife, a heart full of love, a soul at peace.